What am I reading right now? Oh, that's a great question. I usually have like 3 books going at the same time, but I am currently reading a book by a British author called Susie Tate, and she's a romance author, and I've been obsessed with her books all year. So
I am reading for our book club. We have a local book club, and it's called The Lost Bookshop.
Oh my gosh, right now I'm reading a lot of research from scientific studies of reading, especially around morphology and its use in advanced word study, but most people will say that's boring. I love that, and I'm also just finished The Women, and that was an incredible novel.
So I'm reading the Reading League Journal at this point, which is really good, and I am reading a novel, but I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry.
So I'm reading a book called Make It Stick. So that's really a book about how our brain learns to read and how to get content to stick in our brain.
I just finished reading Chris Bojalian's The Jackal's Wife. I just finished that. So my next book is going to be, I think, one more book by Chris Bojalian, and then there are some other authors I'd like to explore.
I'm reading Akhil Amar's first book on the period from 1760 to 1840. Molly?
I'm reading Sylvia Federici's Caliban and the Witch, which was out of print. I had to go get it on interlibrary loan, but it talks about the history of witch trials, starting with the enclosures in Europe in the early 1400s, and how that's resulted in some of the gender systems that we have today. It's really interesting.
I need to get that book.
I'm currently reading When the Wolf Comes Home, and a nice signature. Great meeting him. He was super nice, super cool. It's been a fun day.
I'm reading a very sweet little book about, actually I'll tell you the Donald Hall one, the Eagle Pond book by Donald Hall. I just started that, a friend gave it to me. So I love anything that has to do with like New Hampshire history and just New Hampshire in general.
I'm reading a historical horror novel called Odessa by Gabrielle Scher that is phenomenal. I am in the midst of a big reread of a lot of Peter Straub books, who's a favorite horror author of mine. He was like 70s through the early 2000s. Brilliant writer. And I'm always rereading Stephen King because I cannot help myself. And so I'm usually going back to Stephen King for more lessons and more inspiration and stuff like that. And I do a lot of podcast deep dives on his work as well.
I'm reading The Story of Edgar Sawtelle, which is this amazing, gorgeous story, epic novel about a boy and his dog and his experience in growing up in Wisconsin.
We just finished reading A Dream of a Woman by Casey Plett, which is a series of short stories about transgender women looking for love and support in their communities.
I've been deep in the Lord of the Rings. I was just reading some a few months ago. I haven't finished it. What is it called? Norwegian Wood. I was getting into that, left it halfway. I'm on a cliffhanger right now.
I'm reading Mercy by Jodi Picoult. It is a fascinating look at the human psyche and why we do the things that we do, even when they are, objectively atrocious. Why murderers commit murder. It's just, it's a fascinating novel.
I just finished reading Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson, and it was an amazing look through time at generations of one family and how physical materials can carry such sentimental and historical attachments through like genealogical lines, and I have not yet picked up my next book, so I'm looking for recommendations.
You're in a good place to find a new book.
I think so too.
I'm a huge reader of magazines though, so The Atlantic, Smithsonian Magazine, Bloomberg Business Week, big subscriber of The Economist, so right now when I'm in between books, I'm perfectly happy with the magazines.
I'm reading The Every by Dave Eggers. And it's about a company like Amazon et al. Taking over every aspect of our lives. And he's just such a fluent writer. You can just jump into it and you're there. And then a lot of it takes place on Treasure Island in the San Francisco Bay, and that's where I met my husband. I did not leave my love in San Francisco. I brought him with me. And I would recommend it to everybody. It's very current.
I'm always reading about 4 or 5 books. One that I recently just put down was Warren Zevon's biography. So learning about the musician and his songwriting.
I am reading Paula Meunier, who's a New Hampshire-based author. She writes the Mercy Car mystery series, and this actually relates to Concord TV because Concord TV produces my podcast, Read Local NH, and Paula is going to be the next guest on Read Local NH. She writes a mystery series about a woman in sort of rural Vermont, and her husband is a game warden, and she's a former journalist and criminal detective and so forth. And so I just jumped into the Mercy Car series by Paula Meunier.
So I'm in the middle of reading Jenna Bloom's book, Murder Your Darlings, which is coming out in January, and we're hoping to get Jenna up for an event when it launches. And it's a delicious literary murder mystery.
I'm reading an amazing novel in verse. It's a young adult novel written by a high school teacher in Maine who is Adina King, and it's called The House No One Sees, and it's really the journey of a young woman growing up in Maine whose mother is the victim of addiction and just navigating that whole world in a very deep and emotional way.
I'm actually currently reading Twilight. I've never read it before, and I felt like fall is the perfect time to read it.